What up, though, people? It is your boy Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid, and you're rocking out with the Woodward Pistons podcast on the Woodward Sports Network. And look, we're gonna have Rod here for a little bit of time. We just got him checked in. And listen, I want to break right away to this. I gotta get the Rod father's thought today. I have to get that. I told you guys we want to start opening up our segments that way. We don't even give him no time to get settled in. We just get him in to coming in swinging. Let's rock. Let's rock. Brother, first, let me get the drum roll going, and we're going to get that thought of the day, man. Let's go. Hey, yo. Shout out and welcome to the legend, Detroit News, Rod Beard. Man, dog, the energy, it got me pumped up even more already, man. Even more. It was my birthday this week. My family got me this nice shirt.
Let's go.
Hey, Dragon Ball Z, let's rock to kind of complete my collection. I got a nice shirt collection I'll show y'all, but I'm pumped up, Rod. So listen, to the Rod father, you know, you got to tell me, man, what's on the mind this morning?
We know what the hell we're talking about. We know what we're talking about. Have we been talking about Cade all podcast? The first one,
the whole podcast,
the entire podcast. So people nationally now are coming out like, wow, Cade is that dude. For real? For real.
Really? Seriously?
Really?
Let me put
really?
my on, bro.
Really? Cade is good. Cade.
Hey, Rod. Rod, let me tell you. Did you see the news last week? Cade's really good, according to ESPN.
Breaking news. Cade is good.
I love this.
So my thought is, this is just a validation of all the stuff we've been talking about. I said a couple of weeks ago that
speak on it.
Cade's whole MO is, I don't want y'all to forget how good I am. So what kind of dude says, I'm going to play for the select team, the FIBA World Cup select team. I'm good on the real team, on the national team, but I'm going to come on the select team just so y'all know, then act a fool in the scrimmages, and then, hey, bro, you sure you don't want to play on the national team? No, I'm good.
Bro, what was the quote? What was the quote? It was what, he is on the wrrong team. I think somebody that came out of there. I know
it was from somebody on the Windhorse podcast who had told him, who saw the game, was like, bro, he should be on the national team. Really? So it's really just the validation, like, this dude doesn't really care about all of the stuff, but I just so y'all know, I just want to remind y'all. Here's just a little reminder. Boom, I'm heading back into I'm gonna be frozen in kryptonite or carbonite for the rest of the summer, and I'll see y'all at training camp.
And y'all better find some type of kryptonite, because I'm telling you, Rod, we kept sitting here saying, and I wanted to ask you this question. I'm glad you started there, man. Yo, that was at the top of my notes. I told you, man, let's go Cade zone, because this is something we've been doing for a while. For a long time, saying, yo, it seems like people don't really know. And you said, give them time. People don't really zero in and clue in and things of that nature until the team has some aspect of either showing they're going to be good, or when they have to go and do their reviews and they look at the players, like, people now going through doing their reviews and like, man, because they're all doing their 25 under 25s. The Pistons showing up. They're looking at their teams that are hopeful. The Pistons are showing up. Now they got to pay attention, and they're starting to catch up to where we were already. People, like the 12-game stretch for me, really like the last 3 to 4, even that concentrated last 3 or 4 games for him, it would look so like, okay, he took the step we needed. Was he perfect? Does he have room to grow? Of course. But Cade's baseline, man, his baseline for me is a player that shouldn't be disrespected. Like, I keep hearing this, they had him play the Luka role. When I looked at the tape, they had him playing the Cade role. It was the Cade role. Like that's, to me, I'm just like, stop. Look, Luka, great player, fine player. Cade's a different type of player. And when we look at the highlights and you look at the full run, he looked just like he did in his Pistons run. He's doing the pick and roll. What did you say? You want to see that Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham connection? I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. But I wanted to ask you this: what part of his game do you want to see Cade Cunningham take the biggest leap in next season or this coming season?
I just want to see him shoot well from three. Everything else I'm fine with because you saw that. What did you not see in those clips? You didn't see him shoot a three. Is the only thing. Everything else, the facilitating, the rebounding, the getting to the rack, finishing at the rack, you saw all of that with ease. And it wasn't like Jaden Ivey's speed, it's Cade's speed. And so on the Luka role sort of thing, it's not like you had to program it and say, hey, Cade, here's how Luka plays. Go do this. It's like, no, dude, just do you. Go play like you play. And it happens to be a similar role to what Luka does. And they will play Luka at some point probably in the tournament. So that's why I think the Luka role kind of moniker came out. But it is very much Cade. That's like prototypical Cade. If you go look at his highlights, that's what he does at that speed, at the rim. The only thing he wasn't doing that is like dunking over people, but I don't mind that. I don't mind that. I just like seeing him facilitating and dishing. He wasn't even scoring a ton from the clips that I saw. It was just, let me find this dude, let me make this player better. And another bullet point on the we know what we're talking about. Did Jalen Duren look good in those clips? That man is finishing. And what have we said on this podcast? We haven't seen a lot of Cade, Jalen Duren time together, and it could be real nasty when we do. And when we did, what did it look like? Well, these aren't G League guys that they're playing against. This is Anthony Edwards. This is 3J that they're playing against. This is the national team and guys that they selected. And the other
player of the year, 3J.
Right. So what I take from that is Cade is going to be fine and Jalen Duren is going to be a lot better. And the two of them together are going to be like freaking Wonder Twins activating on the league. It's going. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, man, I was envisioning the triple threat. You know, the way that they were utilizing Jalen Green, I was like, this is the way I want to see Ivy utilized, like Cade. And you know what I realized? Maybe you need the guy that can make those plays. Ivy had the ball in his hands. That's why we didn't see backdoor cuts. I was sitting there like, wait. I was going through the numbers. I was going through things. I was like, dang, B, you got to stop saying this. They didn't have the personnel. Ivy had the rock. That was the best push. Last year, once Cade went down, and I don't think anybody else on the squad can as good as a facilitator that we think Killian is. I don't really see him making those guard-to-guard or intermediary lob passes. I just don't think he might be that good at it or that comfortable with it. But when I saw Cade doing that, pick and roll Jalen Duren, lob it up to Jalen Green, I was like, this, man, with the types of players we have, with what they're saying that they could be, with what we went through, we detailed these players. Jalen Duren was one of those. We hope we had a couple guys we wish that they would go back into the first round and get. He was one of those guys. The athleticism, this is the thing I love as well, the IQ. People continue to talk about, I think it was Anthony Edwards who was like, Jalen Duren is actually smarter than, he's smart. He's a smart. We've been saying this. This guy has good basketball IQ. They talk about his footwork. They talked about his ability to they don't know. So one person said that at first they thought it was a lack of aggression. Then they realized he's kind of measuring things. He'll catch it in the paint sometimes. And instead of just kind of doing the Andre Drummond of just boom, 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 maybe he's not there yet. Maybe like the Pistons told us. Maybe he's still working on things, the footwork and all that. Like we said, we want to see more of. But they say he gets it. He looks first. And he's able to kind of make a good pass, a quick pass, a good handoff, a good dribble back out if it's not there. Man, I'm excited. And that's what I've been saying too. And you've been saying it. And a lot of us on this platform, shout out Jeff as well and Sean Murphy, that maybe this team is a little bit underrated. And maybe we need to look at our guys. They keep saying Cade's playing a Luka role. Why can't we look at Cade, Ivy, and Duren the way that other teams look at Luka and other younger players who came into the league with expectation, flair, celebration. These guys, and I get it. Cade needs to get on the court and be healthy. But, man, he looks exactly the way we've been stating. And I couldn't be more ecstatic. I'm going to continue to kind of be bullish on this thing. Like, You know, we keep saying 30 wins, but
Leave it there. 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 Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well,
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
so
Don't do it. Don't fall
one thing
into
that
it.
got me excited though, this is one other thing, because when we're talking this Cade zone of things, this Cade, and I'm gonna go back to Jalen Duren, but a couple of things that got me excited was they said that he could get anywhere he wanted to on the court, and a lot of people talk about, oh, he's not that fast. They look at Jalen Green, they say fast, and I'm like, I think that there's an intersection of how you use your speed, what your fast twitch is, in your actual IQ. You know how to play somebody. You don't have to be super fast if you know how to use, your momentum, if you know how to use your hezzy, if you know how to do certain things and get to your spots quick, which is a different level of speed than just fast. And so I like that report that they say he can get anywhere on the court. He's played with some of the best defensive players in the league. So that should put to rest anything about his strength, his speed. They said he had bulked up, but they said it wasn't to the point of him being like overly bulky. He could still move around, still do the things he needs to. It was just enough strength to potentially cut down on some of those kind of just random turnovers that we said we want to see that turnover number come down. And we thought him bulking up would do that. And they also said the bulk helped him, and they specifically said Jalen Brunson's name. But they said Cade was getting whatever he wanted in the post against Jalen Brunson and whoever. That's going to be a new wrinkle to his game, because now you're talking about when you're running lineups with Asar and Jade and other people, being able to run him maybe in a 3 or even in a weird small ball type of 4 or in the paint, depending on how the pick and rolls go. I feel like we have a squad right now where I can even see a scant like Asar, Cade Cunningham pick and rolls, getting these guys mixed up into some other types, and then other pick and rolls between them and Duren. But that's down the road. I got some wrinkles and stuff I'm going to talk to you about. But that was another thing that excited me from his kind of Team USA run, and that's really making me think. Like, I asked you what his weakness was, and I want to get that we want to see him improve on, and the 3-point has to be at the top of the list. I think a lot of what he does is good, but I'm starting to feel like I want Cade to know that not only is he like our best facilitator and connector,
he knows that.
He's our best. Yeah, he's our best. He's our best scorer, man. Like, sometimes, like the way that we see Bojan just, hey, I'm gonna go and do this. I kind of want to see Cade come out sometimes and just do that. But we've noticed he's that type of guy who his game gets warmed up by going out there and getting other guys the rock. And if he can do that to the tune of elevating everybody else's game, you're gonna have a pretty solid team, man. But I wanted to ask you something else too. That's kind of popular, kind of going around Pistons Twitter, and it's about the starting lineups. A lot of people believe that Stewart, and this is what I'm saying, the popular lineup is with Stewart off the bench and Bojan at the 4, and a little shudder just a little bit. Now, I get it. Offensively, it's very tantalizing. And defensively, the hope is that, well, usually in a defensive lineup, you may have one guy that is probably a weak link. The problem is when it's at the 4 or the 5 spot, it affects so much, like rebounding and fouls and how a team can actively defend, because now you have to continue to think of, where's Bojan? Where's his man? You got to have extra shades and help if he's at the 4. Rod, what is your thoughts on this starting lineup for the Pistons?
My thoughts on the starting lineup have not changed. Stewart is in the starting lineup, and Bojan's at the 3. What are we doing? Why are we talking about this?
It flared up, man. I was like, I understand it. I get it for maybe even the future lineup, but I don't even. I don't see that, man. We saw kind of Bojan at the 4. I don't know how you hide that. I don't know necessarily if Asar is ready to guard punishing fours that Stewart might be able to guard. I don't know, while we're already saying that we need him to really guard the wings that are coming out. So it doesn't really solve our issue at who's guarding when they run these kind of 2 big lineups. Who's guarding that?
Perfectly said. I don't even need to add anything else. You got all of the points. And it's stuff that we've said before. And I don't want to rehash it, but it's very much what we've said. The 2 big lineups, you just paid that man. You didn't pay him to come in here and be a reserve. You paid him to be a starter, to be a big piece, a foundational piece of this lineup. Case closed, man. Unless you see Bojan sign an extension, or something like that. When you look at this roster, who's the most likely player to be traded?
It's gotta be
Bojan.
Bojan. Yeah.
Gotta be Bojan. Or Killian, if you're gonna say.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
from the
some
rotation, Bojan.
Right. Some combination of that. So yeah, that I think they will show him off in his best role. Why would you put him in a position where he's not going to look as stellar and put him at the 4? He's not regarded around the league necessarily as a 4. Put him at 3.
You're right.
You can show him off. Yeah, look at how he's scoring. Look at how he's hanging with people, and then keep it moving.
So that you can actually try to diminish that knock that's going to go with him about his defense. Keep him in his best position because Troy's been very good at having these assets.
Troy assets
be great on the roster or in a trade, and they've done a good job. I'm just chuckling at putting the makeup on it. You look at Saddiq Bey. You look at all the news, all of the reports, all the things we are privy to, the things that they put out there. And then when Casey said, like, yeah, we're moving him around to figure out where his best place is. Then when they found out where his best statistical place is, Casey said, well, yeah, we're going to put him there. I don't even know if that was what was best for the team at the time, but they said that this is the spot that we know Saddiq Bey excels in. Then all of a sudden you're getting a trade for another promising young player. That's pretty savvy when you think about it. And if you have a Bojan, you kind of want to see the Pistons put him in their best possible position for a player that might not be here long term to be able to get something worthwhile out of the deal. Not just, oh, man, well, we got to get rid of him. I'm talking about something worthwhile where another team can't come in and say, well, we would give you multiple picks, a first and a second, or a young player in the first, but his defense, he's just going to come off the bench for like 3-point shooting. That stuff starts to diminish the asset value of Bojan Bogdanovic, even if you know the other team is just kind of like, but they can do that if you put him out there at 4 and he's getting tossed around like a rag doll on defense. They can do that. And it's just like, I don't know, man. That one is just kind of weird to me, but just some funny notes real quick, bro. Killian Hayes, the news came out and somebody said on the Windhorse Hoops Collective that Killian Hayes will not be a factor. And then literally like either the next day or whatever, Killian Hayes working out in a Pistons shirt.
I mean, the man doesn't have a lot of laundry, and that's the only thing he has is team issued apparel. So maybe.
People are naturally mad. That's a good one.
I don't know what to tell people. I mean, are we looking at what gear he's wearing?
They're like, oh, so you ain't gonna work on threes though? Because it was all hair tools. They're not gonna let Killian live a day. He hasn't given them a reason to. But man, I was like, yo, you talk about a demise, man. Like we were just in the beginning of the season with hope coming off of his 13-game stretch to end the season before. And in just a matter of years, like Sasser, Morris, get the heck out of here, Killian. This is like
Troy ain't playing with you. Troy is not playing.
But we said this. Troy is not going to rest on his laurels. He geared up and got guards back to back, and then went and got another couple guards right after that. He's not wasting time. If there's something wrong with something he did, we've said this. You want a GM that'll come in here and succinctly put things back together. Not even put things together, man. Put things back together would be a 1-to-1. Oh, man, we missed out on Killian, but I got Saddiq. No, even if you miss out on Killian, you got Stewart. Saddiq was turned into Wiseman, and then you went and said, well, I'm still not comfortable with our guard room, and you stock that mug in your next 3 drafts with Cade, Ivy, Sasser. It's like what that new Cade picture, like I'm all for it. Now, obviously, we need to see this stuff work out on the court, but I guess I want to ask you this, because I know you don't have a lot of time. And before you get going, I wanted to ask you this question here. There's some Pistons trivia questions I wanted to leave the people with, and I want you guys to put it in the comments as well. Let me know this. First and foremost, if it's not a Pistons player, who is your all-time favorite basketball player? If it's not a Pistons player, then I need your Pistons one next.
My all-time favorite player is Dr. J.
Ooh.
Because that's just what I grew up on. That 82, 83 era Sixers, that was like the Pistons early kind of, the Lakers are there, the Celtics are there, and you're just scrapping and scraping just to get one championship, just to get through and to break through. And Doc was kind of that. He was getting toward the tail end of his career, but he was still fighting every game. And so that was my team. That's what I was. I was just a little dude and just learning about basketball. But that championship team in '83 was the team for me, because they finally got by the Lakers, and Doc finally got his championship and the slam dunk titles and just what he meant to the game. Doc was my guy.
That's what's up, man. I like that one. I didn't know if it was going to be a Pistons player or not. For me, honestly, I was a huge Grant Hill fan. Huge. I mean, like, he was probably like the first player that I allowed myself to have an absolute, just unadulterated fandom for. The shoes, the jersey, like, my kids are still running around in my original Grant Hill jersey. It's faded, but I'm not, like, that's not going anywhere. Like, that's staying in the family. Like, it's crazy. And I love it, man. But Kobe was different. He was just different, man. For like, I wanted to deny it. I wanted to dislike him. People were always like, man, yo, you look like Kobe. I was like, man, stop saying that to me, especially when we would play. I'm serious. Like, I would try and do all of his moves, and I wouldn't even realize that I was actually out there trying to do that stuff. But it was like the poise, the way he held himself on the court, the way he kind of, talked in the press conferences. It was like basketball was more than a game to him. It was business. And so I appreciated guys like him and Grant Hill at a time where I like the different cultures and eras of basketball. But I don't know. I just really liked the way those guys carried themselves, and the way that it was like, no matter the knock, those guys always found a way to kind of rise above the occasion. And it always shocked people, which always just kind of made me like, like Grant Hill when he bossed up against Alonzo Mourning. And everyone was like, oh, he can do that?
Yeah,
and it's like, yes, it's there. Like, this is Grant Hill. Like, I don't know if I was just too zoomed in. And then with Kobe, there was so much hate against him when he was young. The high school guy coming in, and he carried himself a little way. He probably didn't help himself, but the way that he continued to just knock out all of the different levels, like all the different bosses, and then to be able to make it work with a player like Shaq, those guys to be able to come together, despite them saying for years, like, man, we had troubles, but for the sake of winning, for the love of the game that we had, you put that stuff aside. Even when we do have our fights, it wasn't going to necessarily stop us from winning a championship 2 or 3. I remember Shaq said something like, it might have stopped us from winning maybe like extras, but that's after he said, I think he said after they got tired of each other. So, they kind of let go of that desire. But yeah, they kind of, Kobe and Grant Hill, they were the ones that superimposed things. Not Isaiah Thomas. That's obviously the legend that you continue to keep yourself, knowledgeable of who he is as a basketball player. And somebody I think needs to be kind of in everyone's Pistons pantheon is this guy right here, Joe Dumars. I know that the way that his Pistons tenure ended, it was a little tough, but I believe that ultimately when you're talking about championships, restorations, you can't say any of them without Joe Dumars.
Yep.
So, all right, Rod, look, I don't want to hold you too much longer, bro. I appreciate you. I'm going to wrap a little bit more with the fans. And try and figure out exactly what's on their mind about this Pistons starting lineup, man.
Yeah, you're out here doing God's work. You enjoy that.
No. Well, look, man, let me get you drum rolled out of here, Rod. I appreciate you guys. Look, guys, it was so much stuff going on this morning. I appreciate Rod for just being able to kind of just adjust on the fly. I appreciate you, bro. I really.
All right, bro.
All right. Hey, yo! Shout out to the legend, Detroit News, Rod Beard, brother. Have a great day. Any last words?
I think we know what we're talking about. We're getting more of them right than we are wrong. It's like the SAT. You get a lot of them right, and you're gonna have a good score. We're getting a good score. We're gonna be able to go to a good college at some point.
I like it. Hopefully it's Syracuse, so Troy Weaver can draft us one day too.
No, we just got to be from the Maryland, Virginia area.
Hey, well, that's where I did the college ball thing at. Shout out
to
hey, I love those guys. I got the proof here. I got to figure I'm going to glue it back together, but There you go. Columbia Union College, man. Out
Hey,
on the East Coast
you
of
might be
Maryland.
on the draft board somewhere then.
Hey, look,
Hey,
the ESPN profile is still up there. I'm mad though. I told my people put Detroit, Michigan on my profile, and
yeah.
they always mess with me because at that time we were living in Canton. And so I remember the first night they were like, Brandon Dent, Canton, Michigan. I was like, what? I look back at
Come
my
on,
coach, they
bro.
were all laughing. I was like, no, no. But on ESPN, you can look, man. Shout out Canton, Michigan. No, there ain't nothing wrong with Canton.
That man's still out there. All right, bro. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate you, man. Have a blessed day, Rod.
You too.
Yes, sir. And look, man, look, I got a special guest who was on the way as well to kind of talk some of this stuff with us. I with the Cade Cunningham, the Jaden Ivey, the Jalen Duren, and I want to be able to talk a little bit about these rookies, Asar Thompson and Marcus Sasser as well, because I believe that we might be underestimating these Pistons. And I was saying this before the draft. I was saying this before Joe Harris. I was saying this before Monty Morris. Now the Pistons have gone and upgraded a lot of their kind of weak spots. A lot of spots we said, you know what, they need NBA depth. They added that. We said that they need to get healthy. That's probably the last question mark or flag out there that needs to kind of be answered. But before we continue on, I want to be able to welcome in my bro, Sean. Let me do this right. Sean Murphy. Hey, look, bro, Rod was just on. He was just on. He says hi. He had to run. It was a short stream. And Sean hit me up and
missed
looked
the Rod father. Come
Yeah.
on.
we talked about you today for a little bit, man.
Oh
We
yeah.
mentioned you. Yeah, we try to make sure, man. Look, our basketball family, man, we're all Rodettes of the Rod Father, you know, and
I'm
we
sure you talked about how crazy I am. That sounds about right.
Yep. But look, man, we talked a lot of good things this morning. I want to get your takeaway as well on this Pistons starting lineup, as well as some things that you want to see Cade Cunningham take some steps in this upcoming season. But first, bro, look, Rod don't want no parts of this Pistons starting lineup, no parts of it. So I'm gonna ask you that. But what I'm trying to do every time somebody comes to the platform is just get your unadulterated thoughts, man. So we already got the thoughts of the Rod Father, and he went
Yeah.
ham on Cade Cunningham, bro. What is on Sean Murphy's mind?
Yeah, man. I mean, first of all, like, when you mention like starting lineups, like my first thought goes to I'm less interested to see who's starting at the beginning of the season, and I'm more interested to see who's finishing games at the beginning of the season because as you know, that shows like who the coach really like wants to see out on the court. And like that's when push comes to shove. This is the lineup you're trying to win ball games with. And so I'm interested to see how quickly Asar will be playing in those situations in the end of games. And I think it'll be quickly. And if that's the case, I think that's going to be the thing that builds his case to get into the starting lineup later in this season. Seeing the starting lineup, like the initial depth chart, I'm assuming, just going off the top of my head, I'm not sure what you have, but I'm guessing it's Cade, Ivy, Bojan, Beef Stew, Jalen Duren. Is that correct?
I 100% agree with you on that. Rod too. That's the line
Okay.
where he's thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I think that's your most reliable opening day roster because those are your five most, reliable players. It's not the lineup that most fits their identity and like their like, long-term potential. But at the same time, I still think it's a lineup that can be effective. Like again, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how quickly and how much, Monty maneuvers with the lineup. And really the big thing is like your first 10, 15, 20 games is all about tinkering with your rotation, figuring out like who you want to play in games, who you don't want to play in games. And especially when you're a young roster like us, that's really more like 30, 40 games. So, especially in a first season for Monty as well. So, I think ultimately, I think you're going to see a lot of mixing and matching with lineups, a lot of different combinations and different things. But I think ultimately, when you talk about like do I love the starting five? No, but I'm interested to see if that's the five who closes the game as well.
I think that's a great point that you brought up, especially when we know that that's their philosophy when talking to Detroit Pistons. The easiest thing that it's been is honestly following their trends, following their philosophies, and realizing they're going to stay true to that, which is what I want. You don't want a team that even if it looks like things are going bad, they're going to break off. Troy Weaver
Yeah.
said things like, yeah, we're at 17 wins. We don't like that, but we like where we're headed. We know exactly what we're doing. We know exactly where we're going. We're getting the players we want. We're getting the squad we want. And I want to see what, like you said, Monty Williams can do with this squad next year, man.
Like even when Sadiq was coming off the bench, like as people recall, like when he was like the sixth man for a little bit, when
Mhm.
that caused like a lot of controversy. If you noticed, he was always on the court at the end of games. He was always finishing games. Like when push came to
Well, we just
shove,
talked about
the
that.
best five were on the court,
Yep.
right? So like, ultimately, if guys, if guys like, like Wiseman and Killian or whoever you bring up on the roster aren't quite producing. I mean, ultimately, you're going to get your five most reliable guys, especially with Monty coming in at the
What's
end of
your
games.
Let me ask you this then. What closing lineup do you hope to see?
I want to see.
Y'all put it in the
I
comments
mean,
too.
I'd love to see. Obviously, Cade and Ivy got to be on the court just with like how dynamic they are. I would love to see. I mean, this is not going to sound like a drastic change. It's going to be Asar instead of Bojan, and then either Beef Stew at the 4 and Duren at the 5. Like I still like really just replacing Bojan with Asar. Like I just want to see his defensive ability, his
That that's
athleticism.
not subtle. That continue, but I wanna piggyback on that. Continue, bro.
Because like when we talk about like what I'm kind of like alluding to earlier when I said like it
Mhm.
doesn't like this initial starting lineup doesn't quite fit the full identity. Like let's be honest, this starting lineup is not going to be the starting lineup next season or 2 seasons from now. Like Bojan being in his 30s, very much a trade chip. He could potentially be traded this season if you see what you like, if you see everything you want to see in Asar. Like if he comes in and proves he's the guy that you drafted and he has as much upside as he has, and he's coming in and immediately contributing to winning basketball, why wouldn't you want to put him in the starting lineup or have him playing significant minutes? And
Mhm.
so, like when you talk about like, what that brings, like, yes, you are definitely sacrificing shooting, and I'm not denying that. But the defensive upside, the athletic upside, the ability to push the pace, get in the open court, but at the same time, I think this lineup could suffocate defensively. I think this lineup, I think with Cade on the court, I think they can shoot better than people expect because I think they'll have good opportunities. So,
Gravity.
yep. So,
Yep.
like overall, like there's going to be a lot of tinkering and we're going to find out, a lot about, the guys on the margins in this roster this season. We're going to find out, a lot about, I think we're going to find out a lot about Jaden Ivey as well, just because the year two is going to be really foundational and important for him. And, I think that's going to be the interesting thing is, I think we've gotten the confirmation over the last couple of weeks. Like, for me, it's like it all just circles back to we now can just shut up about whether or not Cade is going to be good. Like literally all they could ooze and rave about out of Team USA training camp over the last weekend
Yeah.
was how good Cade Cunningham was. And every
Yeah.
single reporter was like, he's on the wrong team.
That's how we opened the show today. That was Rod's opening monologue and thoughts was like effectively we started our platform with the Cade zone because we recognized instantly. Look, we knew Cade was good before the podcast, but when the podcast started, it was like let's put the Cade zone in here because people are not covering how great of a player he is. This wasn't just he's our favorite player, he's our best player. No, he's one of the NBA's best players, and he's
Yeah,
one of the
he's like,
NBA's
this
best
is
young
a guy.
players. And y'all
Like,
are hating on him right now by not paying attention to him. Some people ask me, where's the hate? By not paying attention to him. That's like, bro, don't disrespect him like that. He's one of those guys. People sit here and talk about he playing a Luka role. I told Rod he's playing the Cade role. You look at the tape. What part of the tape didn't look like the Cade we've seen? The
right.
same Cade that went to Dallas and put it on Dallas and
Well,
Luka.
and even like the conversations, like people talk about like who could be the next great American star? Who could be like the next great American player?
Man,
And a lot of times like the names that I've been hearing over the last year, don't get me wrong, not that they're not great players. John Morant
no
certainly has a lot of
disrespect.
talent, but where's his priorities at? Anthony Edwards, we don't doubt his talent. Absolutely great. we don't fully know what he's going to be in a few years. And plus, he doesn't quite have the maturity and the leadership intangibles that Cade has. And on top of that, Cade immediately came in after 10 months on the shelf and outplayed all of those guys in select team settings. Like, it's just one of those things to me where, like, yes, we have like some outstanding players in this league, but it's insulting to not include Cade in those conversations. And I think he's going to quickly prove that at the beginning of this season.
Yep.
And you know what's impressive, by the way, like how bulked up he looks. He's the same weight. He just gained muscle.
Yep, that means you gain muscle, drop fat. That means that body fat index, man, that's he's going to be a strong player.
That means he can both absorb the contact, but at the same time keep that, athleticism, keep that speed and burst that you often sacrifice if you're bulking up and putting on weight. So, like, you talk about also young guys having to figure out how to manage their bodies. Like a guy who's 21, 22 years old and was able to get that type of understanding on his conditioning, on his training, and on his overall like body of work. Like it's just another, it's like, it sounds to people like reaching, but to people who pay attention and to people who understand the NBA circle, it's another reason why, this is a guy you need to respect and pay attention to. He has things figured out in year 3 that guys are trying to figure out in year 7 or year 8.
Yeah, and he had a lot of things figured out early on. And that's what made me super excited about his first year to second year transition when he stated, I know what I have to do. Going through this my first year, I know how hard I have to work. I know what the defenses are trying to do. I understand NBA defense. I understand so much more. And that's what honestly is making me even more excited about year 3, because first year was about getting your feet wet. Second year, he was coming into it knowing, okay, now I know what to do. Third year, he's coming in pissed. He's coming in like, bro, I was working these dudes. Like, and that ultimately is what makes me kind of pumped up about Cade. And, with the bulk, that I know the quote, I read it earlier. The quote was that Cade looked really good from the Windhorse podcast, the Hoops Collective. They said, if I'm a Pistons fan, he's bulked up, but not in a heavy way, just bigger and stronger. He's still moving around the court. And the ways when they kind of detailed his game that this extra bulk and strength is helping him is in the paint. When they said he was battling against a guy like Jalen Brunson, that to me makes my ears perk up, because then it expands the types of lineups you can run Cade Cunningham in, especially with all the playmakers and ball handlers that we got on this squad. Man, I continue to ask the question, are we underestimating this Pistons team as a whole? And furthermore, with Cade Cunningham, I'm going to continue to say people are definitely underestimating Cade Cunningham, and it doesn't make sense. I get it. People say, well, we're not really paying attention to the Pistons. That's your fault, though. That is your fault. And I'm more okay with it when the Hoops Collective says things like this. He's looked great in camp. This guy, though, has been sort of out of our minds last year because he wasn't on the court. No. I was kind of okay with it at first, but it was like, no, he's kind of out of your minds because you're not paying attention. Well, like we've been covering this stuff, and I get it.
You understand to a certain extent because there's 30 teams, 82 games, more draft classes, like abundance of prospects. It's super hard when you put a guy on a shelf because, you still understand how good he is. But again, the heart doesn't know what the heart wants if it's not in sight. Right. And, like I'm not making excuses for those guys. Like, obviously, like, like the national landscape, like my issue is they didn't pay attention when he was putting on and when he actually was performing. And like,
that's what I'm saying. The media voted him third in the rookie race. Like, this is not anything new just because that's why I was like, at first I was like, well, okay, well, at least you're admitting you're not paying attention. But then I realized I'm not sitting here making this fight and making I didn't make the Killian zone. I didn't make the Marvin Bagley zone. We didn't make the Stanley Johnson zone.
Oh,
bro, I'll only go so far with defending Andre Drummond. This is Cade Cunningham. When Luka came in, when John Morant came in, when all these other kind of guys who we know are those guys came into the league, we know exactly how the media did them, whether they're on the court or not. But with our guy, it's as if, we can afford to just forget about him because he's in Detroit. Skip that, bro. That's why we covered it the way we did. That's why we have the numbers the way we do. That's why you can rattle off all the numbers and all the records and all the stats. That's why you can do those things. And I love when we used to do that. And it's because he's actually done it. And I get it. You give them a little bit of, leeway because it's the
Right.
Pistons. They're not
Right.
going to be
But
as
but
tuned
this
in,
season
but it's
though,
Cade Cunningham.
right. But
Put a
this
little bit more
season
respect
though,
on him.
the time is up. Like the time's now. Like it is time to notice this. And I think with bringing in, Monty Williams, and I also think with the abundance of young talent that's now on this roster, I think this is going to be a team that's going to start getting more attention nationally. I think, quite frankly, I think this is going to be a team that's going to be, that's going to get more viral with some of the clips they're going to have on Twitter. Like I think there's going to be some crazy dunks. I think Jalen Duren's going to have some moments where our jaws are dropped. I think there's going to be some lobs from Cade because, again, those guys haven't really played together yet. And the little glimpse we got out of Team USA was, oh, they're dominating.
Yeah. And that's why we talked about the Pistons making the decision to shut down Cade when they did, because it's important for this team to hit the ground running with chemistry already. They have to like each other. They have to know where each other wants the ball. They have to know how does Cade Cunningham like the pick and roll. Jaden Ivey has to come in as an apt ball handler. We can't see something one year and then the next season we can't depend on it. That would be
Right.
just as detrimental as if Isaiah Stewart, instead of at the very least staying at 33%, took a step back at the 3 points. But I wanted to touch on something here, and I was going to talk about it with Rod earlier, but I was like, I'm going to save this. I know I was going to try and reach out to see if you could jump on. Isaiah Stewart. I feel like these lineups overall say the most about the Pistons' belief in Isaiah Stewart. But amongst a lot of different fans, observers, and other people who cover the team, I've noticed that a lot of people believe that the best lineup is with Bojan at the 4. I feel as if Isaiah Stewart, and to me, it feels as if people are just stating or believing that Isaiah Stewart is not making any more progressional improvement. If Isaiah Stewart, bro, makes just marginal improvement, do you know how good of a player he will be?
He
Just
already
at least
was one of our
production and
best
stat
players.
wise, just say 2, 3, 4, 5% higher on his threes. Right? See, think about if we're talking about 36, 37% from 3. Think about if we're talking about just a couple more rebounds a game. Think about if we're talking about now that he has an actual 5, an athletic 5 next to him, an extra block a game, the ability to get another steal a game, because
And in this
that's
league,
easy for him to do this year.
in this conference, Bojan at the 4 is asinine, especially if you're talking about on the defensive side of the ball. Like, are we literally forgetting what our entire thing is built off of? Like,
You
what
sound
this
like me
team's
earlier.
entire identity, what their entire presence is supposed to be? Like, you want to put the scrawny white guy at the 4? Like, I'm
No.
sorry, but with all due respect, like, I love Bojan. I have been one of his biggest defenders ever since he's came into Detroit.
Free Tony,
It is on this team.
man.
If he's starting at the 3 because we do not want to rely on him on the defensive side of the ball. Now, yes, I do think that there's lineups where it makes sense to have him at the 4, but people, Isaiah Stewart is a good basketball
Talk
player.
to me about Isaiah Stewart, brother.
I get he had the shooting woes to end last season, but is the form bad? Is the 38% that he shot in through November and December, did that just not happen? Are we just going to pretend that him being lower on the scouting report is not going to benefit him? And with Cade and Ivy now both being on the court together, it's not going to open opportunities for him from beyond the arc. Like, I think collectively our shooting numbers should go up this season with Cade coming back into the lineup because those types of players who make their teams better, one area that it shows is in the efficiency, in the shooting numbers. And I think especially when Isaiah Stewart is being relied on as your second or third option in parts of last season, because again, people don't remember just how written that roster was by certain points of the season. I just think especially the work that this guy puts in, the amount of improvement he's shown from year to year, I think he's another guy that within 10, 15 games, it's going to be like, all right, the conversation's done. Like we could just start acknowledging he's a guy. And when I say he's a guy, I don't mean he's an all-star. I mean being like a great role player, which again, you need great role players. Did the Denver Nuggets not just win a championship?
He's got the Isaiah Stewart stats out, man. He
I
put
thought
up
you were
some
trying to
impressive
have
stuff.
me read something off of that page. I was like,
I
oh,
was just
what
like
are
making
you
sure
doing?
people knew, man. We're going right to the sources, man. You know, got the season guide and everything. And Stu put up some pretty impressive games. And I was one who started the season stating, I don't know if on a winning team, if Stewart is your starting four. But I said I want to see him go out there and do everything in his power to earn it because I like his pedigree. I like his DNA. I like his makeup. He's the type of guy that you want everybody on your roster to have some aspect of who he is. And so it's important to have that type of guy on your roster. But of course, you want to see Stewart, especially with the money he's getting, take steps forward and make the plays that we want. And that's the thing. Like, yeah, I'm sitting here looking at these numbers. He did, man. After you get beyond like these first several games where he went 104, 104, 104, you start to see him putting in some 40%, 40%, 60%, 50%, 50% from behind the arc. When I'm looking at his averages, you kind of see he goes through a blip where his 3-point shooting was kind of up and down, up and down, up and down. And then all of a sudden you see the DMP after about a week or two of that. That's around the time that he had that injury. And honestly, there was a shoulder injury that happened a little bit before that too, like a screen where he bumped it, but it wasn't fully injured. And then later on, it was when he kind of got the shoulder fully injured. And you could see, like when I'm just looking, that's why I wanted to look at it from this perspective. Sometimes when we just type in online, you know, what did he do over so many games? We don't actually get to see the box score where you get to see the injuries, the inactives, the DMPs. You're not able to see the ebbs and flows where it's like, okay, the Orlando game, people will say he shot 25% that game. That's awful. But Sean, what was the 1 3 he hit that game? The first game of the season?
The one at the end of the game that
One at the end of the game. Because he's in what lineup? That closing lineup. That actually, if he can be that type of a guy that you know you could depend on, it reduces the necessity to even have a guy like Bojan out there if you're looking to put out your defensive death lineup.
well, and
You know,
again, his value is way beyond the offensive end as well. I think, we judge people's games far too much just off of what we see when they get the ball in their hands. Yes, not every player is a superstar creator in this league, but you know what Isaiah Stewart is really good at? He's really good at switching on the defensive end. He's really good at getting to the board and he can be better at crashing the boards, but in key moments, he's really good at getting to the boards and being a hawk in the paint. He's a nuisance and a presence at 6'8". He plays bigger than his size, and he's a guy that you can play on the perimeter. He's a guy that you can play in the post. He's a guy that's a heart and soul of the team. And again, he's just getting into year 3, year 4 himself.
still young. Yeah.
Exactly.
Still
And there's a
learning.
reason he's the first rookie extended on this team since Dre and the first actual rookie extension under Tom Gores.
I love how particular and exact you are about the realness of it, because it is. That is exactly how it is. And it's I'm excited to see something we didn't get a lot last year, and that's the pairing of Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. Defensively, that was double beef. We
Right.
saw it. We saw it. It allowed Isaiah Stewart to not have to take the Punisher big and allowed them to, in moments, if he had to, switch and swap, but just roam. So even if he's not switching around the perimeter, what I really liked about Isaiah Stewart, and I was more looking at, can Stewart be this kind of maniac rebounder? But with everything that he's asked to do, that's just not going to happen. You look at
Right.
Isaiah Stewart's stats last year. I was looking through the box score again. We started the season asking and wondering, is there any Pistons big on the roster that can average a double-double with rebounds? And we said no. We thought if anyone was going to do it, that Jalen Duren would get the closest if he got the minutes, or that he would actually do it if he got the time. But guess what Isaiah Stewart was doing over the first like 10, 15, 20 games of the season when he was playing with playing in some different lineups and asked to play in the paint? He was averaging over 10 rebounds a game. Something I hadn't seen him do prior. He was
Right.
taking steps forward. And that's what I'm saying. Like, this guy, as he continues to kind of take these marginal steps forward, and I believe that he's going to take some more marginal steps forward next year, where he's looking like a guy who can average a double-double, looking like a guy who can come in and hit about 35% from his 3-point range. And as a big who can hit some free throw percentages, some free throws at a pretty decent rate. That's something that you actually want in your starting lineup. And it's not something that I believe Stewart could do. I didn't know he was going to come in this season, raise his 3-point attempts by over like almost 150 in a season and still hit the same percentage, but have his effective field goal and his 3-point rate go up.
Yep.
For a big man, that to me is a guy who, with the way that he works and what you're saying about with the defense, man, I'm not going to put any limits on Isaiah Stewart. Obviously, I don't believe he has a ceiling that Jalen Duren does, but in terms of sitting here believing that there's not some benchmark that Isaiah Stewart can't hit, I think we just got to let him play it out this season, man. Like he's really, I don't know.
Well, and again, I just think, and understandably so, last season was really difficult to watch, and I totally get it. But I think to a certain point, you have to take the bad taste out of your mouth of last season and acknowledge the team that's coming in this season is a different team. And I would, and again, you and I maintain
that enough,
this,
brother.
and like, I cannot say this enough. This team wins more than 17 games if Cade Cunningham is healthy. If all the injuries didn't happen at the beginning of last season, this team is not one of the 3 worst teams in the Eastern Conference. Maybe they still are, but they're definitely not the worst team in the NBA. And especially looking at the talent of this roster and looking how good Cade looked in that footage. And again, you got to see it on an actual NBA court, but I'm pretty confident we're going to see it on an actual NBA court. There's a lot of reason to believe this team could approach 30 wins. And again, this could be a team that we look at midway through the season in the entire league's like, wait, the Detroit Pistons are in reach for the play-in? Like, that is entirely possible.
It is. When we saw Orlando do it, I believe that Orlando last year has less talent on this roster than the Pistons this year. And I believe that Orlando last year had a little bit better defensive makeup.
Yep.
And that's what allowed them to carry it. And that's where I'm hoping this Pistons squad.
They also started their rebuild with like 4 first-round picks from trades and assets.
Yep.
But people don't like to bring that up for whatever reason.
Because the facts get in the way of the narratives, brother. But that's why we will continue to try and at least make sure people are well informed of what the actual kind of what's going on beyond just our emotions, beyond sometimes with Pistons fans, like how the rest of the world isn't paying attention to us. Sometimes we're not paying attention to the rest of the world. And so we try to make sure that everybody has kind of this level space of playing where we can actually talk the real of basketball. Because you're right, Orlando, they got a lot more as it relates to being able to start theirs. Like we literally started ours by stretching contracts again.
Name their top 3 prospects, Kool-Aid. Name the top 3 prospects when Troy Weaver came into the team.
When they traded Andre Drummond, that was an asset of sorts.
He was already traded. Troy Weaver didn't even have Andre.
Like whatever the cavernous space was.
So you know what?
Not drumming. That was that's what I'm saying was bleak. What did he have?
He had Bruce Brown. He had Luke Kennard. And the 3rd best young player on that team was Svi Mikhailuk.
Bro,
you know
what? Sean? That's such a great point because when a new coach comes in and he wants to make some trades, sometimes you go with your middling players. You don't usually go and trade your best players, which at that point in time, Bruce Brown and Luke Kennard became like the best players on the team just by attrition and albatross gutting the roster. But they were our middling players that you would have naturally or normally said, look, we can make some because we got to worry about the cap space, which means we need some players that can be paid underneath the whatever's coming in the future. Those are the guys that do it with, whether you like them or not. I don't believe he disliked Bruce Brown or Luke Kennard. I think that they're fine players that he knew. These are some players we can get back into this first round with. Bro, great point, John. Great point.
and within 3 years, he turned it into a team that Monty Williams wanted to go to.
Nobody wants to come to Detroit. You have to overpay people to come to Detroit. And that's why I'm glad Monty Williams, right, sat up there and said, actually, I like this roster. The reports are out there that I've been complimenting this roster for some time. Didn't we sit on here when we asked the question of what's the reality of Monty Williams? We said we would love him. We know he loves here, but he ain't coming here. Like, why would he
Right.
come here? Like, he's a coach. Then when he got fired, we were just like, don't swing and miss. Go out there and get it. We sat here, bro. When it came out that he wasn't going to come to Detroit, remember that first report? And people said, ha, ha, ha. And we kept sitting here and said, well, it didn't come out that he said he's not going. The Pistons just giving him his time, and we don't want them to swing and miss. I don't care if it's an overpay. Go get the best darn coach in the market, and people still, to some degree, complain about that.
And people also don't like to bring up the fact that within 3 weeks of Monty Williams signing that contract, which again, Tom Gores brought up one of the reasons why he made the contract what it was because he was predicting where the coaching market was going. And so he figured that, if he wasn't going to set the market at that level, someone would. And within 3 weeks of Monty signing that contract, you know who became the highest paid coach in the league, Kool-Aid? Greg Popovich, because that's how long Monty Williams was the highest paid coach in the league. 3 weeks. Because Tom Gores, as much as people want to rain on his parade, was right about setting the market, because that's just how this thing works. But no, they just drastically overpaid. They were just desperate. Now they don't know what they're doing.
Look, and it doesn't even count against the cap space, the cap sheet, man. It's just like, look, guys, let the owner cook when he can cook. If you identify it as the best possible candidate, let him cook. This is where we want him to cook. Where we don't want him to cook is throwing another contract at a guy like Andre Drummond when it might be in difference with the GM. Let the GM and the coaches cook in their territory, and let the owner cook in his territory. Hey, look, this is something that don't go against the cap. This is something I can do, like paying the luxury tax, paying for the right coaches and the right front office personnel, making sure that the arena and the practice facilities are top notch, making sure that when people come here, they feel special. Monty Williams spoke to how special and how well taken care of he was, and how like family and friends was more like he felt like when he met with Tom Gores. People are like, why is he meeting with him out in California? Because that's where his home is. Right. You know what I mean? That's where his stuff is. If you're gonna show off to somebody, his castle right now is out there. He don't even have an arena out here. So it's just like, let him go out there and show Monty Williams that Detroit means you have connections everywhere, which in reality is real, bro. Like, as I'm rapping, that is what Detroit is, man. The people in Detroit have connections to everywhere. Why box yourself in when you can have it and more? Have your cake and eat it too. That to me is what Detroit is. And you know who said that actually? Ndamukong Suh. People were like, did you enjoy your time here? He was like, yeah, and I don't hold anything about ever going back, but I never really left. Y'all just saw me left the Lions, but it was some of my business partners and friends in Detroit who were like, bro, we love you here. If you want to go out there and do what you do, go out there and do what you do. And he wound up finding himself in positions where, he played some time out with the Miami Dolphins, right? Well, who's the owner out there? Ross from University of Michigan, one of his friends. Like, that's what you want out of your owner, man, to go out there and show that I can help you with endorsements, because people come here and say, well, what does Detroit have? Well, Tom literally finances movies. You know what I mean? It was Lindsay Lohan who was borrowing his car. You know what I'm saying? Like, that story always cracks me up, bro. But yeah, I'm pumped about this season. I'm not sitting here saying the Pistons are making a run on the playoffs, but in terms of seeing a squad that kind of got us as pumped up as Stanley Johnson's Pistons that got in LeBron James' head, or as pumped up as Blake Griffin made us, I believe that this team is going to give us our most hope after we get through this season. I think that we're going to finally be able to see the semblance of everything that we've been covering, the semblance of everything the Pistons have been saying, and honestly, the semblance of how this thing should come together. You got multiple lottery picks on this squad. You have NBA players now in this squad. I felt like, I don't know how much better Grant and Kelly Olynyk are over, what we have like a quad now, right? We have Bojan, we got Alec Burks, or is it a trio? Bojan, Alec Burks, and Joe Harris, and then Monty Morris. It's a quad. I feel like that quad is going to fit better with this squad, even though it might not perform as well or outperform Jeremy Grant or Kelly Olynyk as like individually, I feel like that quad complements our young cores and our group so much better, man.
And they don't have the poison pill contract that Jeremy just got.
Woo!
That
Woo!
was,
Well, I'm still in the way. You got me rocking around the house going, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hell, hey,
Look, man.
night, yeah.
Listen, y'all. Before we sign off here, and Sean and I, we're gonna bring some content. I was thinking about it. We're gonna bring it to this channel as Rod and I are moving on. I was like, you know what? I think this is the big dog show right here, man. But Kool-Aid and Murph is gonna be making its grand entrance soon, and we couldn't be more ecstatic, talking all sports, talking Michigan, and really letting you guys in on the fun that we have, man. Sean and I probably talk like an hour or two a day. We probably need to turn that into content soon. And then when we get together,
we literally could have made an entire podcast out of our drive home from SummerSlam.
We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it, yo. Killian Hayes. We gotta talk about it before he's traded or something. Shout out to him though, man. At the day after they said something about he's not gonna be a factor, he's working out in his Pistons shirt. You know what Rod said? Hold on. I was like, Rod, what do you make of it? I was thinking Rod was gonna say, you know what? I like to see him standing up against it and working. Rod was like, well, you know, he has limited laundry. I was
literally about to say, I was like, that's Killian being fiscally responsible. He knows he can't bulk up that closet yet. He knows he can't go buy no Gucci.
Leave him alone, dog. Leave him alone.
This guy got to be shot. We got to be getting this guy some Kohl's gift cards, dude.
Killian. Bro, I asked somebody in one of these chats, like, yo, is anybody buying foreign? Because Pistons are selling. Oh, man.
We got to get him like Fruit of the Loom or like, you know, like some Hanes, Hanes jeans or underwear or whatever.
Man, like, do we need to start like a collection for Killian Hayes?
No, he will be fine. He is doing A-okay. He is doing just fine.
Tom Gore's boy, he need to throw him some shirts, man. Just stand outside his apartment and just we gotta get the content going. But bro, I appreciate you being willing and being available today.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, no, every time I love talking it. But guys, look, we're gonna bring some content to this channel pretty soon, and we're gonna talk about our WWE SummerSlam time. Sean, do you got any quick thoughts? Any quick comments you want to share? Bullet points that people can look for?
It was wild. I mean, I'll just say that. I mean, I'll just briefly highlight it. The highest grossing WWE event ever that wasn't WrestleMania. Roman Reigns' longest match ever. Ronda Rousey's last match ever.
Suplex.
We got to see a Money in the Bank cash in, which like
Brock Lesnar
is extremely rare. We got to see Brock Lesnar.
Just suplexing everybody.
It was
grown men.
L.A. Knight. That guy's rise to stardom is ridiculous. That's a whole other conversation.
I like Cody Rhodes, bro.
Yeah, man. Cody might be the best in the world right now.
He has a presence that I think I feel like The Rock as a wrestler he's a great wrestler, but in terms of presence, Cody, man.
The way Cody like the whole like wrestling psychology, like he can play a room like a fiddle, man.
I like it, dog.
He's got it figured out.
His crowd control.
Yeah,
the whole crowd. I'm like, look, I know where we sit. It's just a sea of people, and we just see people moving. But the camera shot from the angle, from like the ring side, we gotta find our way in that crowd next year, man. It was so hype, dog. I was like, oh, shout out to Sean Murphy, man. He treated me for my birthday.
That event was insane. We had a blast, man.
It was fun. But hey, look, I appreciate you dropping by, man. Like again, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Got the double dose of the Rod father and the Sean father, because Sean has a cat, y'all.
I'm probably still too young to be the father here. Maybe I'm like. No, you
got a cat, man.
Or something.
You take care of your cat very well.
Okay, I'm a cat dad. All right, that I am.
Cat daddy. Let's rock.
No, not Don't add that to the end. Absolutely.
The Rod father and the cat daddy. Let's rock.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you put that on us.
Oh, man. Oh,
No.
man, oh, man. Dude, that is hilarious. But all right, y'all, let me get this thing wrapped up. And you know what? I'm about to do a drum roll for Sean Murphy. Let's go before we go, man. Look, before we do that, my name is Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid, and you guys been rocking out with the Woodward Pistons podcast on the Woodward Sports Network, and I can't wait until next week when we check in again. We're going to get into some player profiles. Let's get this drum roll going for Sean. Man, I think, is this the first time?
I got my own drum roll. Want to hear it?
Maybe I'm just dumb.
Let's rock, bro. Let's rock. This dude, I'm not even listening to that. Sean is one of the smartest basketball minds out here in this community. So let's get this drum roll going for him. Hey, yo! Shout out to the up-and-coming legend, Sean Murphy. Let's go, bro. Thank you for tuning in, you guys. I appreciate you. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Make sure you also tune in to From Half Court and everything that Sean has going on over there, as well as the Detroit News and woodwardsports.com and at Woodward Sports on everything. I appreciate you all. Have a blessed day. Till next time, you guys.
Peace.